The locals called it Blackwood, not because of the trees, but because of what happened to the light when you stepped beneath the canopy. It didn't just fade, it felt swallowed. Marcus wasn't one for local folklore. As a seasoned wildlife photographer, he'd spent nights in places far more remote than this patch of state-declared wilderness. But by 11 p.m., standing under the oppressive ceiling of ancient pines, he had to admit the silence here was wrong. In a normal forest, the night is alive. Insects hum, leaves rustle with the movements of nocturnal rodents, and owls call out. Here, there was absolutely nothing. The air was thick, damp, and perfectly still. He adjusted his tripod, aiming his camera down a natural corridor of twisting trunks. Through his night vision lens, the world was an eerie wash of neon green and ghostly shadows. He snapped a few long exposure shots, the mechanical click of the shutter sounding violently loud. Then he heard it. Crunch. It was the distinct sound of a dry twig snapping. Marcus froze, keeping his eye glued to the viewfinder. He panned the camera slowly to the left. Nothing but the pale, glowing trunks of birch trees. Crunch. Crunch. It was closer this time, moving with a strange, uneven rhythm. Step, drag. Step, drag. "Hello?" Marcus called out, his voice sounding flat and robbed of echo by the dense moss. "Is someone there?" "I'm armed," he lied, his hand instinctively gripping the heavy metal flashlight at his hip. No answer. But the green-tinted world in his viewfinder suddenly shifted. About 30 yards away, behind a thick oak tree, something leaned out. Marcus gasped, his finger freezing on the shutter button. It looked like a man. Or it used to. It was impossibly tall, its limbs stretched out like elongated branches, its skin the color of rotting bark. But it was the face that made Marcus's blood run cold. It was entirely featureless, except for a wide, jagged slit where a mouth should be. And it was wearing clothes, specifically a bright red windbreaker. Marcus's stomach dropped. The missing hiker from the news. The creature didn't rush him. Instead, it slowly raised a long, segmented arm and pointed a needle-thin finger directly at Marcus. Then it spoke. But it didn't use its own voice. It used the frantic, terrified voice of a young man, played back like a corrupted audio recording. "Please, someone help me. I'm lost near the river. Please." The voice cut out abruptly, ending in a sickening crunch of bone before looping again. "Please, someone help me. I'm—" Panic, pure and primal, flooded Marcus's veins. He abandoned his tripod and turned to sprint back toward the trail. He tore through the brush, branches clawing at his face and tearing his jacket. He didn't look back, but he could hear it behind him. It wasn't running. It was moving through the trees with terrifying speed, its elongated limbs snapping and cracking like a falling canopy. And the worst part was the chorus. As Marcus ran, the forest seemed to wake up. But it wasn't birds or insects. From the darkness all around him, dozens of different voices began to echo. Women, children, old men, all of them crying out in desperate, panicked loops. "Is anyone there? I can't find the car. Mommy, it's dark." The forest was a trap, and the trees were singing with the voices of everyone who had ever been caught in it. Marcus saw the headlights of his truck gleaming through the tree line just ahead. He burst through the final thicket of briars, tumbling onto the gravel road. He scrambled to his feet, ripped his keys from his pocket, and lunged into the driver's seat, slamming the lock button. Hands shaking violently, he jammed the key into the ignition. The engine roared to life. He slammed the truck into reverse, the tires screaming on the gravel as he backed away from the tree line. As the truck's headlights swept across the edge of the woods, Marcus hit the brakes, paralyzed. Standing at the very edge of the tree line, just inches from the gravel, were 3 of them. One wore the red windbreaker. Another wore a child's yellow raincoat. They stood perfectly still, bathed in the harsh white glow of his high beams. Slowly, in perfect unison, they raised their long, twisted arms and pointed directly at his windshield. Inside the cab of his truck, the radio suddenly clicked on by itself, drowning out the engine with a blast of static. Then the static cleared, and Marcus's own voice poured out of the speakers, screaming in absolute terror. "Oh God, unlock the door. Let me in! Let me in!" From outside, the things in the trees smiled.